The break room.
The break room. Break room. Watch the break room.
And how do you feel about what's going on?
Well, I think it's appropriate. I think we need to support it more, but understanding that it's going on in different areas of the country at the same time, I understand that also. But I believe if you listen to the speech I gave, and if you listen to young people listen to that speech and pull some of that information out of it, it will be very helpful in our society today.
How do you feel about the misjustice? How do you feel about the misjustice?
Well, I think it is a miscarriage of justice, and I think Congress specifically needs to do something to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I think right now it's to the point down there where it's 50-50 chance down there of whatever may happen, but we need to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Do you think it will happen again?
Oh, I would venture to say yes. Given the makeup of this country, yes.
Everybody thinking that we have advanced, but I'm gonna ask the question, and I want everybody to answer this, is that if you really think about it, have we really made achievements, and are we really advancing and progressing as a people? I want you guys to really think about that.
Okay.
I'm gonna think about it and I'm gonna answer it.
Okay.
Thought about it, about to answer. I feel like, nah, we haven't progressed. There is no progression. Why is that? Because there's no leader. Our strongest times, even to this day that we talk about, is when? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Those are the generations when we were strongest. But those guys are taken out, we fell apart. You know what I mean? It's like we're scrambling all over the page, but we have no focus point. It takes a leader to actually bring us to the next level, and that's why we haven't been able to progress, because there's no leader. Okay. That's probably why I also feel like that this march don't really say anything to me, because tomorrow it's not going to be no progressive state after it. Why? Because this really has no one really taking it to the heart, the source of the problem, the source of the racism, the person who is a smart man that's making the racism a known factor. There's no one taking it to them. And you know, and since there is nobody taking it to them, there will always be racism, there will always be segregation, there will always be discrimination.
It's how we progress. Now, if you're coming from a time, like, you gotta understand, when we first came here, or we first brought here, or enslaved and forced to come here, our language was taken from us, our religion was taken from us. These were things to keep us dumb, you know what I'm saying? So as far as common sense, which you have, even if you can't read or you can't speak your language, which we're all blessed with, you know what I'm saying? You need to be able to communicate on a level as far as reading, as far as mathematics, as far as whatever. So from a simple state of being an ignorant person that knows nothing about math, English, any form of literature, or just knowing anything about what's going on, I think all of us can admit that there's progression. When you got people like Frederick Douglass, who, and I'm only using Frederick Douglass because that's my only example of, I'm sure there's people that learned how to read before him. But as far as people that we all know of, this is a black man that taught himself how to read when most of those around him couldn't read. That's a progression. Then when you go on to us being free as slaves, even though how free were we at that point, we were still somewhat free. That's a progression. Even when you take it further to that point, we talk about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, all these areas, not even just Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Khalid Muhammad, all these people that were outspoken when there was a point where if you were walking down the street and you found something amusing, you had to stick your face inside of a barrel so that when you came out of that barrel, you were straight-faced in front of white people. All these things are progression. Have we made the ultimate progression? No.
So you're saying that we made some progression, and I absolutely agree with you on that.
We're not on the same level.
Yeah.
We're not on the same level as any other race. Any race, whether you're talking about Oriental, whether you're talking about African, whether you're talking about Caucasian, all these people have achieved more things than we've achieved at present day. But we have achieved. That makes progression.
It is an injustice of, what's going on down in Louisiana, and I think, they need to, the media need to tell the whole story. There's two sides to the story, and the whole story needs to be told. There needs to be a change in our justice system in America, and that's all I really have to say.
How do you feel about something like this happening in this day and age? Like, this is 2007.
Well, it's been going on ever since we got here. 2007, and it's not going to be over in the next decade, but you just have to keep making strides to make change.
Okay, thank you.
This idea of why we're not progressing is because, based on what I just said, that our history is not being taught to us. We're not being taught how special and how we truly are. It's because now, if we're being called African Americans, what is an African American? What is that? We went from being nigga to Negro to colored to black to now African American. The only time in American society where we gave ourselves an identity was in that civil rights era where we did call ourselves black. But other than that, every name that we've had has been given to us. So now when we talk about progressing, we aren't really progressing. The only thing we're doing right now is making more money. And because every last one of us are so stuck in making more money, we are divided. So we can't move forward because if we can walk down the street and everybody, as you walk past another black man, we ice grill each other. Why do we do this? I don't know. Black women, as they see each other, oh, who that bitch thinks she is? How are we progressing? We're more separated now than ever.
And here, and then when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan came down with the Million Man March, we marched again to say that things have to change. But evidently we've got to do more than march. We've got to do more than rallies. I heard somebody asking while the last speaker was here, someone said, well, what are you doing? You're in college. What are you doing? Now, let me tell you something. And the reason I raised it was because someone said it, but you couldn't hear it. Now, from Newark, New Jersey, you take things where they are and you deal with them. These things have got to be done collectively. First of all, the Democrats were in a minority up until January of this year. Why? There are many more people that believe in the Democratic philosophy. Minimum wage increases, health care for everyone, having a re-entry program when our young men and women come out of prison. But we're not going to be able to do any of that when 40%, 50%, 60% of African Americans who are eligible to vote don't come out to vote. Then you keep asking us, well, what are you doing? Let me ask you, what are you doing? How many people have you registered to vote? How many brothers and sisters have you pulled up? How many young black guys have you mentored? How many little girls have you taken in an organization? It ain't what we're doing in Capitol Hill. It's what are you doing on your block? Enough is enough. You can't always point the finger at somebody else unless you say what you're doing. We all gotta come together. The Black Caucus is not your enemy. We're battling racism every day. But we can't come down to your block. We can't come take the choir. You can't find a man in the choir. We're in the church. We've got a lot to do. But we're not going to do it by saying, well, what are you doing? The thing is, they used to say right in that corner where you are. You can do something with the guy next door who's not registered, or the lady up the street who don't send her kid to school properly dressed. You can take a young man and say, let me mentor you, let me lift you up. We're going to win because we're on the right side, but we're going to win all together, not apart. That's been our problem up to now. We're going to win this thing, but we're on God's side. We're on the right side.